Hey, this is Clifton Fair, LMHC and Executive Coach. Welcome to Klif Notes. We will be covering a myriad of topics ranging from executive and leadership challenges, as well as our own human existence, running the gamut between being a human being as well as being a leader within organizations. Stay tuned, show up, listen, watch. We want to make sure that you capture everything that we provide on this show because it's going to help make you better. Hey, welcome to another episode of Klif Notes. I'm Clifton Fair, and today we are joined by two amazing guests. We have Mr. David Jobin and Mr. Stratton. Stratton, say your last name for me.
Pollitzer.
Pollitzer. Mr. Stratton Pollitzer. David Jobin is the executive director of our fund, and Stratton is the co-founder and deputy director of Equality Florida. So to have these two men in the same room having a conversation is beyond parallel. So we're excited to jump right in. Fellas, welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Good to have y'all. First and foremost, thank you both for doing such an amazing job within the community, both locally and statewide in our respective counties, and really just taking us to new levels and being able to access or help us access more clients, more of the community, more of the individuals that make up these respective local and statewide communities. Great job.
Thank you.
Currently, both of you are working on your own respective projects, right? But collectively, y'all are doing something in order to address the current political climate that we're facing. And it seems like some good things are happening. And I'm sorry, David, to bring you into the political scene, but here we are.
I'm the eternal optimist, so I think there's always good things happening. You know, we've been through this. We've been through these times before, maybe even worse times. And, you know, it's great to sit next to Stratton because, you know, the Our Fund Foundation does very specific work around philanthropy and raising money, but that's where our work stops. And then we hand it over to leaders like Stratton to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I think 9 years and 2 weeks ago was when Florida won marriage equality, when plaintiffs in Equality Florida's lawsuit were married in Miami-Dade County in Judge Zabel's chambers. And I think about how in that moment, I grew up believing that could never happen in my lifetime. And then there was a moment where a lot of folks thought our work was done and kind of leaned back and thought it's all sort of downhill, just tidying up. And thank goodness for organizations like our fund that recognize the importance of the long-term investment in this work, because the other thing that I wouldn't have believed would happen in my lifetime, certainly not on that day, January 5th, 2015, is I would not have believed that we would be seeing the horrendous attacks on our community that are happening now. I did not think I would ever see a law pass in the state of Florida that banned even conversations about our existence in Florida elementary, middle, and high schools. I did not think that would happen. I did not think we would see a day when transgender youth and adults were being denied access to medically necessary care that they've been receiving for years or decades. And so kudos to our fund because they really stepped into this fight in some ways at a high point, but they right out of the gate recognized we've got to have a strategy for the next 5 years, 25 years, and 100 years, because this is not going to ever be over. The job will change, but this has been a harsh reminder that what is it? I think that Dr. King said that the price of equality is eternal vigilance, and we're certainly seeing that now.
Well, I'm watching the two of you actually be super vigilant in how you're raising funds and also how you're getting behind some of the lawmakers and policy makers that are out in front of us as a community. And I'm wondering, what's that current initiative that you're really focusing on at your own respective places within this fight? Where are you with that internal optimism and what you're doing?
So we're not so much on, we're a 501c3, so we have to keep an arm's length away from kind of politics and policies and politicians. Mm-hmm. But, our priorities right now are with the fallout of what's happening on the political front. So our largest initiative in the last year and the largest initiative we've taken on since our inception in 2011, and Stratton and I were just talking about is, our fund just helped launch a home for unhoused LGBTQ youth. A situation that's going to get progressively worse because of the decisions that are being handed down by, this horrendous legislature that we're dealing with. So to have a 12-bed facility be used as a model for how we can uplift LGBTQ youth who find themselves unhoused, not just in Broward County, but in all of South Florida and perhaps across the country, has been, very rewarding, but also extremely necessary at this time. Unfortunately so. Again, 5 and 10 years ago, I think we were under the belief that, the situation with unhoused youth would become better, right? I mean, people were being more accepted at home, in schools, in their churches, in their workplaces. And here we are taking how many steps backwards and having to create an atmosphere and an environment to make life livable for unhoused LGBTQ youth. So our efforts are always in impacting the fallout from the political crisis that we're dealing with.
So you all are providing more of a catch-all or a net to kind of support those people who are directly impacted by some of the stuff.
Stratton mentioned the situation that transgender individuals are facing. Suddenly we're having to invest much more resources behind supporting transgender community because they're under attack in a way that we never thought they would be. So we're fortunate to have those resources there. We're fortunate that people left in their wills and estate plans their community through our fund foundation, that we've got the resources to invest pretty quickly in response to what we're facing.
And I'm going to get you to respond to this, Stratton, but the idea is that one part of the marginalized community, and I say one part of meaning the transgender community, one part of that marginalized community meaning the LGBTQIA+, right? That community at large, that one part, the 3%, is being under attack, and it almost feels like some people may really just kind of like see that as like separatism, an opportunity to just separate. What do you say to that?
I mean, I hate to simplify it to this, but it reminds me of the National Geographic special, right, where you watch, a cheetah attack a flock of animals, and they find the weakest one and they bring it down, but they're not going to stop. It's not as though they're going to say, well, this is done. We're done with those, antelope for the day. Mm-hmm. The minute they finish that, they're going to go after the next weakest one and the next weakest one. And this has been their plan all along. And if we don't stand together, we fall apart. And there's an education process that needs to happen in the LBT community. We need to teach gay men and lesbians about the importance of this community and why they're a part of our community and how we can be better supporters and ambassadors on their behalf. And there's a lot of education that has to happen.
Yes, right. And I asked that question of David, and I didn't give you an opportunity to actually speak to the current focus for Equality Florida, or for you with Equality Florida. Can you answer that, and then maybe we can circle back to that other question?
One of you just said it, that we've been here before. Right, that this civil rights movement, like every civil rights movement, it is cyclical. What we feel like we're facing right now, it's for those of us who've been doing this for decades. It reminds you a lot of the late '70s, early '80s, when Anita Bryant brought the Save Our Children campaign. I mean, what the rhetoric that we're hearing today is like a carbon copy of that, but on steroids. And the big difference is that this time it's not just an orange juice spokesperson, former beauty queen. It's the governor of our state.
Same heels, though.
Right.
They're
The same heels. Right. DeSantis and his heels.
Make sure we put that down, same heels. Hashtag same heels,
yeah.
right?
But the rhetoric that you hear, it is a recycling, and the same things that were said about us when we were, growing up in high school and starting our professional careers, that we were, sexual deviants, that we were unsafe to be around children, that we were trying to and it's all about stigmatizing us and making us other. And it comes out of a national political right-wing think tank. I mean, and this is easy to look up. What happened after 2015 was they realized that marriage equality, which had been the gift that kept on giving in political cycles, was a lost cause for the conservative right. And they said, what are we going to do now? What are we going to talk about now? What will win us easy votes? And they threw everything at the wall. And the thing that stuck was, let's attack trans people. Because it's easy to attack people and demonize people when you don't know them. And we've reached a point where a lot of people might have a gay friend or a lesbian friend, and have gotten to know them because of the great coming out generation that we've kind of all been a part of. Far fewer people have a close friend who is transgender, and it makes it easier for them to lie about who these people really are, and they don't care who gets hurt as long as it serves their political ambitions. And Ron DeSantis, naked political ambition to be president of the United States, he is willing to throw anybody under any bus and climb over as many victims as necessary to get there. And so anyone who thinks that this is about trans people or even just LGBT people, no, it's not. It's about the entire progressive community. It's about, this is an anti-immigrant message. This is an anti-black and brown message. This is a whitewashing of history, the censoring of books in our schools, this message of control. And really what it comes down to at its core is they have figured out in this country, we are about to cross the threshold where the United States is no longer a majority white country, where for the first time, whites will not be a majority of the population. And that scares the crap out of some people. And they are tapping into that fear. And their message is the LGBT people, the immigrant community, black and brown people are taking this country to hell in a handbasket, and we better snap it back from that woke generation as fast as we can. And that is the evil bile that they are putting out there. So we have to, as David said, we have to stand together, not just out of a sense of obligation to our friends, neighbors, colleagues, and loved ones, but we are all part of the same attack in this moment. I will say, so for us right now, we've just entered what we call the 60 most dangerous days of the year. The Florida legislative session started yesterday, Tuesday, this week. And we had hoped that after the terrible laws that passed last year, we might see a little bit of a ratcheting down of the rhetoric, but that hasn't been the case. 22 anti-LGBTQ bills have been filed already this session that take these laws to an even more extreme level. For us, we look at that and we say, we have three jobs. One, we have to kill every bill that we can, stop every one that we can, and we will stop many of them.
How do we as a community help with that?
Well, one is we need your voice, and let me get to that.
Okay.
Let me get to that.
All right.
So, because I'm going to say, because we got to stop everything we can. We've got to mitigate what we cannot stop. Carve out amendments. Mm-hmm. That's crucial. Make them less bad. Last year, here's one example. There were many, but one example: the bill they passed that banned trans people from using the bathroom that aligns with their lived identity in any government building in the state of Florida. Originally, that was any business. It was going to include restaurants and private business also. We got to carve that out. So we got to mitigate. And then when bad things pass, we have to stand together to make sure they're implemented in a way that does the least damage. And how do we do that? The worst mistake people could make is believing that the professionals have this, that there is no way to win right now through reason and conversation. It will take political might. It will take tens of thousands of people organizing. And so last year, we leaned into what we call the resistance, and we said to folks, we have to organize at a level beyond what we saw in the marriage equality fight. In just the last 12 months, we've had over 100 direct actions attended by over 10,000 people. Folks have got to show up for that. Right now, as we're sitting here, 300 people have come to Tallahassee from all over the state, and it's a 9-hour drive from here, and there are plenty of people from South Florida who are there meeting with legislators right now. We're going to be there all 60 days. We put out a resistance report every single week that shows folks how to plug in. But it's not far away. This fight is in your backyard. We need people at school board meetings. It does work. We have seen school boards that were taken over by right-wing Moms for Liberty, just like the new Save Our Children campaign. Mm-hmm. We have seen them when hundreds of people from our side show up and say, stop hurting our kids. They blink, right. They back away, and we have to be there every single time. We say we're not going to win every battle, but we have to fight every fight right now.
When you speak about showing up, both of you guys represent an organization within its own respect and right that shows up, and how you do that may look a little different, whether it's physical or financial. And I'm wondering if you can speak to what you need from us as a community in order to show up more for the respective missions in your organizations.
I think we need people to participate in whatever way they can. And Stratton's right. I mean, if you're able to show up in Tallahassee, show up in Tallahassee. If you're able to show up at a school board meeting, show up at a school board meeting, but do something.
But that's not the only way, though, right?
It's not the only way. I mean, our Fund Foundation, we're about financial support. We want everybody to think about digging deep and making a difference. But in the situation we face right now, it's everything from helping people register to vote. It's making sure you vote. Everybody needs to exert some kind of energy and effort in this moment to make a difference. Whatever that means for them, whatever their comfort level is for that. I just think people who are sitting back thinking that this is going to solve itself are part of the problem at this point.
Like the passivity is not.
It's not an option right now.
Okay, that's actively still sending out a message.
Right.
Before I let you speak, Stratton, or before I get you to comment on that, I'm sorry. I want to know from you, David, because I look at our fund as an organization that's not just financially backing a lot of the nonprofit organizations within the community, but it's also helping to fund a lifestyle for those people who are directly and indirectly impacted by the current challenges that we're facing. What are you noticing from your vantage point that is maybe kind of being altered right now as it relates to the historical wins that you all have experienced with funding or with supporting some of those, lifestyle initiatives, right. Or, what do you
I don't think it was their intention, but I do think, and Equality Florida probably has a similar take on this. There were parts of our community that thought, why do we need an our fund and why do we need an Equality Florida? We have marriage rights. The situation is looking better for LGBT people. Why do we need a specific LGBTQ community foundation? And this moment is reinforcing for people, Stratton used the word cyclical. This is cyclical. There will never be a time where LGBTQ people are not under threat, where we do not have to support our own interests, where we do not have to invest in our own communities.
Well, our fund is a incredible model for really not just our state, but for the nation in terms of understanding what it's going to take for our community to have the resources to defend itself and to support marginalized folks in our community and to thrive, because we get very, very little financial support compared to other groups in our country. Like the amount of foundation support that goes to the LGBTQ community from mainstream foundations is still less than 1%. Less than 1%. Less than 1%. And right now in Miami-Dade County, almost 20% of students identify as LGBTQ, but we get less than 1% of the funding. And we're working to change that. Equality Florida has formed a council of foundations in Florida that we meet with regularly, and our fund's a part of this too, to try to train them on how best practices for supporting our community. But that's before you even get to things like government funding. Never had any. We've never had any, right? So if we don't have foundations like our fund, and we know this, we learned during the AIDS crisis, right? When in the 80s, when the president wouldn't even say the word AIDS, and then there was no support, that we had to go out and build our own safe zones, our own healthcare networks, and unfortunately we're still in that place. And because our fund is focused on estate planning, that's where the big wealth transfer is going to be. Equality Florida also, we look to our long-term supporters to consider an investment through their will or estate plan, because when I think, I've been doing this work for 30 years. And retirement is not tomorrow, but I can see it from here. And when I think about what is crucial in terms of making sure that we are always at the table and we are ready for what's next, the only solution is will and estate planning. Mm-hmm. As the only place where we're going to be able to, in the next 25 years, bring in the resources to really stabilize our community. And that is our fund's message. And we're so lucky to have an agency like our fund in Florida. They're almost unique in the country, I know. So for Florida to have this and the resources that you all have been able to build so quickly, and we're really just getting started.
I look at the two of you as two men who represent funding our resources, right, and funding the fight, right? So when both of y'all are really kind of looking to have the community rally around opportunities to show up, to be accountable for, also to be supportive. I see great faces for that, right? I mean, don't tell your partners, but for the community, I see this as great faces because your messaging is really clear, really clear. If nobody understood what the hell you do, now they do. right? But there's something that you have to continue to do when you wake up every morning, whether you're getting good news from the Hill or good news from Tallahassee or bad news from the funders. You still got to show up and be you in that mirror. And I want to know what's that messaging that's going on inside of you as you walk out of that door into your respective fights.
I think I'm extremely fortunate that my career and my values are so closely aligned. Mm-hmm. And for a long time I managed arts organizations, nonprofit arts organizations, and I'm a big supporter and believer in the arts, but it wasn't until I made the transition into LGBTQ causes, and I did that, I made kind of a natural transition. I became the executive director of the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C., and I did that specifically because I knew what was driving me in terms of kind of my passion in changing the world were around LGBTQ issues and how could I kind of marry those two worlds. But, I look at people who go to work and perform a job that I'm sure they're great at, but it doesn't really, there's no kind of fire in their belly for it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how they get up every morning and do that, honestly. And I know that every day I go to work, I feel like we've got this window of opportunity to capture this generational wealth, because we're talking about 20 and 30 years behind us. There are natural heirs, right? There are younger gay people having children that the population I'm kind of talking to every day doesn't have. That's not a concern of theirs. Right. So there is a limited window of opportunity we have to raise as much money as we can for future generations. So that's what keeps me going, right? It's something I care about. If everyone says if they won the lottery, they tell their employer to shove it. I probably would show up tomorrow. Right. I don't know that I'd show up next week, but I would show up. I would still do this work. Right. I would still get behind it. I would volunteer. This is what I would do day in and day out, were it not my career.
Okay, passion.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine living through this, living in this time and not being a part of this. Yeah, it's hard. There are moments when we're faced off with the Proud Boys and hearing terrible things said about us, but there's so much joy in doing this work. And I look back when we started Equality Florida, and to be clear, nobody goes to school and gets a degree to come be a LGBTQ activist. Like we all found
drama club.
Maybe drama club. Yeah.
You might be able to step in that direction.
Yeah, there's no certificate required. You just start showing up. And back then, everybody was against us. Like even the media was against us. We had very few friends in the Democratic Party. Some of our progressive allies, we were the one issue they didn't want in the room because they thought we were going to be the one that slowed their agenda down. So today, while we are up against a lot, we have so many more friends and allies and resources than we've ever had. And to me, when I start to, feel the drag of the things that are happening, I know the solution is to get away from my computer and get out in the community. And I tell folks, last year Miami Beach Pride was just, anyone who was there knows what the resistance really feels like, because we had a state legislator who had just been elected. He's a gay Republican who was just elected to the state house representing Miami Beach, who went to Tallahassee and voted for every anti-LGBTQ bill that was filed, just awful, and then came to the Pride Parade, thinking that nobody knows who their state legislator is. And he hired a band, and he rented a red convertible, and he thought he would blow kisses at the crowd and get a bunch of photos that he could use in his next campaign run. And we showed up with 75 people and bullhorns and signs and went up and down that parade route and said, Fabian Basabe is in this parade. Mm-hmm. This is what he just did to our community. And when he comes down the street, you have to boo.
Y'all actually did that before he even got on the route.
That's right. And listening to 20,000 people yell at him to resign, tell him, just feeling the strength of our community when it came together. I mean, you know that you're on the right side when you feel that. You know that we're going to win. And there's tremendous urgency. That's the other thing that gets me out of bed, because it's not a question of if we will win, but when. And I'm so grateful that our fund is focused on our youth right now as a top initiative, because in these moments, what they are out there doing is programming families to reject their own children for who they are. And that, we know that family acceptance is the most important factor and whether or not LGBTQ young people are going to make it in life. The three things that matter are, if you have a faith claim, are you supported, at your church or synagogue? Number two, are you affirmed and supported where you go to school? And number three, does your family love and support you? And number three is the most important. And they are teaching parents to reject their children. We've got to build a safety net for all of those young people right now. So, the urgency of the work, but then also the joy of being in this community and being a part of the fight, that's the thing that makes you feel better. Don't shout at your television. Come out and join us in the street.
You can do both.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Shout at your television and then come join us. Yeah.
Actually working with the LGBTQ youth right now, and having them really try to navigate the space, both in the home, at school, and also in society. What's something that you would tell them as they're trying to get their footing? I can say it individually, I can say it in a group, but I feel like here's an opportunity for you to capture both the parents and their kids.
I'm reminded more than 20 years ago, one of the first big fights we ever had was that this traveling awful right-wing group called Love One Out came to Tampa, and they were doing, it was conversion therapy. Right, and they would do these giant conversion therapy weekends.
Do they do the whole put my hands on you?
Whatever it took to train, and they ran ads in the Tampa Bay Tribune at the time in the movie section, because they knew teenagers were reading that had a bunch of happy teenagers, and said, "Are you tired of being gay? Come to this weekend and we'll fix you." And the message that I remember was one of my first television interviews I ever did. And the thing I said then is what I would say now. You are perfect exactly the way you are. Don't change. To understand that you are not only should you be tolerated, respected, and affirmed, but you are a gift to this world, to this planet. That the world would be less with. Oh, you pause me.
I want to pause you because I want you to say that to them. I really want them. I can feel it. I'm right here though, but. Can you say that to them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, to all the LGBTQ young people growing up, especially if you're not feeling that love and support from your family in your day-to-day. Just know you are perfect. You are a gift to our planet. If you're transgender, we are so grateful to have you be with us in this world. We have so much to learn from you. And you just got to hang on to that spark. Look for the support and resources. We are out there. We are here to help you. We are on your side. You are not alone.
Wow. Thank you, Stratton. They needed to hear that.
Yeah.
I really believe that I know it. Thank you for that. Fellas, your intestinal fortitude to actually show up and not only do the work that you do or that you're responsible for within the organizations that you actually represent, but to be able to carry, that message both in your day-to-day life as well as in your respective circles. That came from somewhere. Was there somebody, instrumental in your own respective lives that you hold on to or held on to that are worth mentioning, that actually gave you that additional gristle or grit to get through these times?
Well, yeah, I think I was sort of born to this. My family, I'm from a fifth generation on both sides from a little town in South Carolina, and my family are crazy, crazy liberals going back to the 1860s.
That's not the South. That's the South.
Yep, the South, but they were desegregationists, or they were abolitionists, and then they were suffragettes, and then they were desegregationists. My mom started the first integrated private school in the state of South Carolina because she didn't want to have to send me and my brother to an all-white racist academy. So she's definitely. My mom is definitely the centerpiece of this, but it was a guarantee that I was going to find a civil rights movement to be a part of, and the fact that I'm LGBTQ made this, the place that I have centered my career. But it was definitely coming, and when I came out, my grandfather had a pride flag on his beat up old Thunderbird within a week. So,
so Grandpa.
Yeah. The whole family. And they were, in South Carolina. I grew up in the segregated South, in a majority black community. Right in the shadow of Martin Luther King. I was born the year that he was murdered, And, I saw it on a day-to-day basis. I saw what injustice and inequality looked like and what it cost, my friends, and the way that it deprived a lot of people of opportunity. And it was just, I was really clear from the get-go that I wanted to be, that was the most important thing for me in my life, was just being on the right side of history, being a part of moving towards a solution. And it's not a destination. You don't get to, if you go and do civil rights work because there's like, you think I'm going to go accomplish this and then we're done.
Right.
No, it's that you do it because you have the marvelous opportunity to participate in it. That's why you do it.
I don't have anything that inspiring.
No, there's.
I mean, I have my work ethic definitely comes from my family, right? I mean, I came from a family of hard workers, but throughout my life, I've recognized that because I'm a cisgender white male, I have entree into communities of wealth that other people might not. And I've always thought, how do I leverage that? People might look at me and think that I grew up in wealth. I didn't grow up in wealth. I grew up around wealth because my father managed a country club. And I remember I gained skills in that environment that I knew how to navigate my way through communities of wealth, even though I didn't have that. And I've always thought, how do I use that unique kind of gift and experience to leverage on behalf of marginalized communities that I care a lot about. I live by, those who have done well can do good. And I've been lucky enough to do well. And, what good can I create in the world for people who don't have entree into communities of wealth that I have?
You both have taken opportunities to grow beyond maybe some of those generational spaces that your family has ventured off into. You found a way to actually take your good and turn that into some good that the rest of the community, your brothers and sisters within that community, can actually benefit from. From me to you, from the listening and viewing audience, from them to you, we say thank you very, very much for all that you do and how y'all continue to show up for us as models and also inspiration.
Thanks, Clifton. Thanks for all you do. My goodness.
Yeah.
And for putting this program together. You're always looking to inspire and enroll our young people and help build positive paths to their futures. I'm very impressed.
I followed the lead of my predecessors.
Yeah, you do a good job.
Thank y'all for showing up and teaching us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I do thank y'all both for showing up today. And I just want to say this has been another episode of Klif Notes. But before we go, I want you all to know how to get access to both our fund and Equality Florida. Stratton, can you tell us how to do that?
The easiest way is just go to equalityflorida.org, sign up for our email list. We have a Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, but equalityflorida.org. That's the fastest way to get in the information loop. We'll keep you plugged in.
You can find out anything you need to know about our fund at theourfund.org. And I don't know anything about our social media because I'm too old.
Boo, that's not true. Well, fellas, thank y'all very much. And I'm hoping that the audience will actually capture a moment to connect with you all on your social media platforms. But I really appreciate your presence here today. And we look forward to continuing to do great work with y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks, Clifton. It was
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you.